Hello and welcome to Flourish After 50, a podcast that supports women navigating change to create a life that feels more true, more intentional and more your own. I'm Sue West, coach and facilitator of small group programs, and on today's episode I've got something really different for you. Earlier this year I joined Bec Wilson on her podcast Primetime, where I shared my own story of career change and why I started Flourish After 50. Bec has generously agreed for me to share this episode with you here today. And you'll hear my warts and all story, including some of the challenges I faced and some practical tips to help you find momentum around changes in your own life. Now, you might hear a familiarity between Bec and that's because she and I have been collaborators over the last couple of years. Bec is the author of the best-selling book, How to Have an Epic Retirement, and I contribute to her course as an expert in finding meaning and purpose in life beyond work. Bec was also my very first podcast guest on Flourish After 50, episode number 1, where she and I talked about her second book, Primetime, 27 Lessons for the New Midlife. If you don't already follow Bec and you want to know how, you'll find all the details in the show notes. Okay. So now it's time to sit back and listen as Bec and I talk about navigating career and life changes after 50.
Nine podcasts.
Hello and welcome back to Prime Time. Today's guest is someone who's not just talking about midlife transformation, she's living it. Sue West is a leadership and transition coach who helps people navigate big changes in work and life. But what I love most about Sue is her own story, how she's built her coaching business, Flourish After 50, and redefined what success, purpose and energy look like in this stage of life for herself. And she's done it on herself first before she helps others. This episode is about what happens when you stop chasing the version of success you were sold in your 30s and 40s and start creating one that actually fits who you are now. Sue, welcome to Primetime.
Hi Bec, thank you for having me.
I am thrilled to have you here. You are, I think, a poster child for prime timing, in my opinion, and so having everybody hear your own journey and now what you do today, I think, is a bit of an exciting opportunity for us all.
Oh, thank you. I look forward to sharing some of that with you today.
You've been on a midlife pivot over the last few years. I'd love you to tell us your story from 50 and how your career and your interests and curiosities have changed.
It's funny to think back to 50 because I'm now 61. And at 50, unlike many women of my age, I had a 9-year-old, a 12-year-old and a 15-year-old as a late to parenthood mother. And I had spent some time building a career and, living this successful family life and helping support my aging parents, and life was, going really well until I hit a big road bump at about 47 and my partner and I separated and I found myself single parenting. My parents' health actually worsened and I found myself working kind of part-time and caring for them on top of my job, as well as caring for my children full-time. So I had a lot going on. And menopause, oh my gosh, that was just
Add it to
throw
the pile,
that into
hey?
the mix.
Add it to the top.
Throw that into the mix. Yeah. Well, there was a lot going on, as you can imagine. And I made it through that time. Eventually my mother died actually when I was 50, and life started to settle down a little bit at that stage. And I got on with, I was promoted at work and I got on with work and single parenting, and on I went. And I'd kind of come through that time of, particularly I think the relationship ending, where I was kind of rediscovering myself, thinking about what matters to me now. And yeah, by the time I was 50, I was en route. But then I had this other road bump about 57. So I don't know whether it's the 7-year itch or something like that, but it was mid-COVID. I was not doing all the things that I'd really enjoyed doing in my job. I used to present on stages all over the world, and I found myself at home with the same people every day, and like everybody else in Melbourne, it was ongoing, and there wasn't an end in sight. And I found myself in this spacious time of being at home, not doing all my usual things, of realising that I actually didn't have the passion that I'd once had for the career and the job that I'd been in for 10 years previous. And it sort of stumped me a bit and surprised me in the sense that I had been working towards this and on this one path for a really long time. And so to reach this point where I went, I don't know if that's what I want anymore, was pretty startling and very unsettling. And I didn't have a plan B. I had no idea what I was going to do next.
Wow. So I have to ask, what did you shift first?
I thought, I've got another 10 years of work that I want to, 10 years of that I wanted to be working. What work could I do now that would really light me up and take me in a different direction? And I didn't quite know where to start in that exploration, but what I did do was go back to a time when I was in my late teens, early 20s, and had been making decisions about which career direction to go in, what course to do at university. And there was a path at that time that I had thought about following, which was more along the lines of psychology and social work, so in the helping professions. And I didn't take that path. And so this question was coming up to me, but is that something that's still of interest? Is that something that I could pursue now? And I didn't really know. It felt like maybe it was an old dream and one I'd let go of a really long time ago. But I decided to sit with myself for a while and explore that. So I started talking with other people who were in those professions, looking up courses, seeing what would be involved in a career change, and realised that for the one that I felt most passion for, which was psychology, that I would be 65 and very broke by the time I was fully qualified to practice. So I thought there has to be another way of being in the helping professions. And so at the time, my sister was working as an executive coach. And so we had lots of conversations about psychology, the relationship between that and coaching and social work, and could this be something that I explore? And ultimately I decided that I did want to go down that path, and I did a course to become a global executive coach back in 2022. And I found myself in sessions in the learning in the course, which was all online at the time, just kind of having these whole body reactions to what I was experiencing, which was absolute pleasure. It's like this knowing deep in myself that this is what I want to be doing and that this is exactly where I need to be. So that was game changing. And I guess I would say that the sense that I had at the time was, although I felt kind of lost and uncertain on all those things, when I had those moments of absolute clarity, I held on to them for dear life and recognised them and held on to them, and they kind of helped my momentum in moving forward. So I did the course and I spent a lot of time with other coaches. I started practicing coaching with anybody who would work with me, and again, I started to then think about, well, what do I bring my coaching practice to? I'd worked in a career that was very much about having an impact on socioeconomically disadvantaged communities in Australia. So I had this very strong sense of social justice, and I couldn't see that that's something that I could necessarily bring into my coaching. So I just kind of looked around. It's like, well, what's needed in the world right now? And what I saw was that there were lots of other women like me who were going through changes, navigating change, and probably feeling a bit lost the way I did. I also had friends and colleagues who were being made redundant after COVID and things, the economy was shifting. And so a whole lot of people who were feeling a bit lost and uncertain in their own career. So that's where I began to focus on, in particular, women over 50. So women like me who were going down their own path or wanted to go down their own path. And I hung up my shingle, Flourish After 50, in 2022. Now, I'm sounding as though that's a really straightforward pathway and process, but let me tell you, there was lots of tears. There was lots of having to learn new things, incredible amount of uncertainty, which I'm one of those people who hates uncertainty. So it was a very challenging time, and I'm really pleased to say that 3 years down the track, I'm completely over that uncertainty and feeling very sure and confident in what I'm doing and how the impact that I'm having and how I'm supporting women over 50.
Your definition of success, how has it changed from when you were in a corporate role to where you are today and throughout the journey? I'm really, we are so often guided by this sort of perspective on what success is. And it's so important to reframe it, I think.
Yeah, and for me, I wasn't from a corporate world. I was from an academic environment. So success was measured in grants, so the amount of money that you were able to bring into the institution. And so money in, papers out, kind of the breadth of your networks, the expertise that you were able to bring to the world. And for me, I think about what that job required or that career required was what I describe as my big brain, and it was very head work. And what I found coming into this next phase was that I really wanted to do more hard work. So the impact I wanted to make was not on the whole world. It was really around working with the person in front of me. So success to me was being able to support individual women and small groups of women on their own journey. I had to let go of money being a really significant driver. I don't think I would ever earn as much money coaching and in the work that I do now as I did in my academic career. So I needed to then find other kind of yardsticks for my own success. And also, and you would know this, Bec, from starting or restarting with in your own career, that when you're starting over, it takes time. So each stage of business development each year is different. And I was pretty hard on myself in that first year, thinking that success for me needed to be miles ahead of what was actually possible for me in that time. So work success continues to be really important to me. And I've made space for other pursuits, I guess, in my life. And so balance is really important. Flexibility is really important to me. Making sure that I have, probably the thing I've dialed up most is adventure. And I've really enjoyed some travel. I've really enjoyed getting into some bushwalking and e-bike riding and camping and getting more, and maybe this is a post-COVID, like from one extreme to the other, but getting out into the world much more and really enjoying that part of my life, which when I was full-time single parent, caring for aging parents and working hard in my career, there wasn't a lot of energy left over at the end of the day for anything that was about me. So that's probably been the other most significant shift over these last couple of years.
I just hear Primetime everywhere. All the wonderful parts of the ingredients that I see in a well-balanced journey through this phase of life. Do you feel like you're well-balanced?
Mostly, I'd like to say that probably the thing that I am still practicing at practicing at improving, can you do that, is really around physical exercise, which is not my happy place. So it takes a lot of effort on my part to be really physically active. There was a period when I took up running at 50 and ran my first half marathon at 51. And that was kind of like, I can barely recognise that part of myself that did that. I think that was a survival mechanism to get through menopause because my body just enjoyed the endorphins so incredibly much. And so having had that experience in my past, it's something that I think about and remind myself about the benefits of physical exercise. And that's kind of, if I think about, one of the things I do with my clients is a wheel of life where you draw a circle and you divide it into 8 pieces of pie and you label each of those for different aspects of your life, and whether it's family and friends, whether it's work, whether it's fitness and health. And then I get people to rate their level of satisfaction in each of those areas of their life. And for me, the kind of the fitness and health one is the one that's work in progress.
I had my weighted vest on this morning out for a walk with my dog, but I do have to push myself.
Yes.
It's not my favourite thing either, but on a busy day, it's important to get it in early is what I find.
Yeah, I'm with you. When I was running, it was at 6 o'clock in the morning because I needed to be back by 7 to, get the kids ready for school and out the door. But it got me into the habit of early morning exercise. And at the moment, one of the things that I build into my morning is because I'm a coffee lover, being from Melbourne, and so wherever I'm going to exercise, it needs to finish with a good coffee that helps motivate me and anchor me in that experience.
Oh, well, whatever motivates you is my philosophy. It's for me, I'm a Brisbane girl, so I can drink crap coffee for the rest of my life just happily. And so I go to Melbourne and I have to get half strength, right? Maybe that's not a Brisbane thing. Maybe that's just a me thing. I don't want to insult Brisbane people. But I guess, what did you let go of that allowed you to have the space to do what you're doing today? Because we know that transition and change, you can't just keep piling more on in this phase of life. In fact, what you have to do is shed the old skin and take risk and go into the next bit. What have you let go of, or what has automatically grown out of your life? Where are the kids now? Are you really at that point where you can?
Let me think about a way into answering your question. I think at the time when I left the work that I'd been doing and created this new orientation, I left behind a whole lot of ways of working. And so the researcher in me, the kind of the wanting to make a difference on big policy issues, I kind of put that aside and said I want to work with individuals and groups. But actually what I've found as I've become more and more confident in that type of work, I've brought back in those other parts of myself and reclaimed them. And I have to say it's been the most pleasurable experience. So as you know, because you were one of my first guests, I've just launched a podcast series, which has involved me doing a lot of kind of tapping into that researcher part of me in terms of learning about who else is out there doing this sort of work and what they're saying and what they're writing and where does that sit in the international literature. You and I have had these conversations before. So it's been bringing that part of myself back in and applying it in this context has been very, very rewarding. I would say that probably the thing that one of the things, and you asked about kids, is that movement towards empty nesting. One of my kids moved out 3.5 years ago, came back for a while and is now gone again, and the other 2 are still living with me. But they don't need me other than to wipe the bench after they've left mess everywhere.
Yeah, same.
But
I'm constantly swatting flies and wiping benches, but they don't need me to do anything else really other than their laundry, tragically.
Yeah, well, oh, Bec, no,
I know.
I don't do laundry.
I know, but my husband, he keeps saying, oh, don't stop now. You know, we're so close to the end. We could just be all doing it economically together. And I'm like, yeah, except that the mountain sits outside my office.
Yeah, so and I guess that's that sort of reorientation from being parent-child to, you know, the way I talk to my young people about it is that we're kind of like housemates sharing a space together. And
I keep trying to convince mine that we're housemates sharing a space together. It's not working for me yet, Sue.
You need to send them to me for a week, Bec.
Can you
I'll
train
sort
them?
out.
They need a coach.
But what it means is that, I mean, it means lots of things, but I think for me it's been a pretty awesome and painful process to let go of being the person in charge in my own home and in charge of what they do. And that sounds very bossy, and I don't mean it in that way. I mean being the person who made all of the decisions about what we did and where we went and all of that sort of thing. And so in letting go of that role in their lives, it's actually left space for me to think about what do I want now, and how do I want to spend my time that isn't about going and watching them play sport or, you know, the many things that I've done with and for them over the years. And with that comes this paradox of more time, more freedom, more choice, and what do I want? What do I want to do? So the things that I've discovered for myself are that I've found a type of printmaking that I'm really enjoying learning about. I'm currently looking for a drawing class because I've discovered that to be more successful in my art, or not successful in terms of being wildly successful, but to improve my art practice, I think I could be supported by learning some of the foundations of drawing. So I'm looking for a drawing class. And as I said, you know, camping and adventures and things like that, which I've always done with the kids as well, but I'm continuing to do and go to the places that I like to go and do the things that I want to do. And that feels pretty awesome.
Has there been a change in your peer group during this journey?
Yes and no. So I would say that I have a core group of friends who I've known for more than 30 years, who I see on a regular basis, and they have remained in my life. I would say that, you know, they talk about you have friends for a season, a reason, and a lifetime. Well, they're the lifetime people. The season people have been more around work and the various connections that I had through work, both in the organisation that I worked for, but also nationally and internationally. And of course, they don't necessarily come with you when you leave a job or a career. So it did leave a space for me, and I think during COVID and after COVID, and there were periods of time where I felt quite lonely. I have a partner now, and she travels extensively for work and spends a lot of time away from the home. So there have been periods where I've discovered that I've felt a bit lonely and wanted to and needed to do something about that for myself. So I joined a network 2 years ago of other women over 50 who were like me, wanting to make new friends, and I've met some awesome people in Melbourne and in other parts of Australia through that. And I think just generally in the sorts of things that I do. So when I connect with other coaches, for example, I really enjoy those social aspects of that as much as I do the professional development and learning aspects of it.
That's awesome. I'd love to dig more into how you found that group, because I know a lot of people ask us in courses and in all different conversations, how do we start creating new friendships that aren't aligned with our workplace? You know, I'd love to hear more. Where did you find it?
Well, that was a group that found me. It doesn't exist anymore. It was called Connected Women, and it was heavily promoted through Facebook. And I checked, and it was for women 50 plus who wanted to socialise and connect. And it had started during COVID in WA. A group of entrepreneurs established it, and it went gangbusters in Western Australia, and then spread to the eastern side of Australia. And so I joined that, and it was really a platform, a little bit like I forgot what it's called now, but there's another one, Meetup, a bit like Meetup, where there are activities for you that are run, and all you have to do is kind of say you're going to go and turn up. And I really liked that because I'm an organiser, and I'm usually the one doing the organising, so it was very pleasurable just to turn up. And the premise of it was that we were all going because we wanted to meet new people and socialise and connect, and I guess what happened
to
over
each other,
time
which
was
sounds great.
Oh, yeah, definitely not.
So
definitely
much work
not. And it was
associated.
very much,
networking is about selling to each other, and you come away without real friendships.
Yes. And I think there's two things that I've learned from that experience. One is that all of those sort of things that you experience in adolescence about meeting new people and your sense of value and worth in relation to others reappears when you're in your 50s and 60s, and you've got to do battle with that all over again.
And judgment and, I thought I'd removed all that from my life.
Yeah, me too. But it turns out that when I stretched myself into a network of people that I didn't know, it kind of popped up again. So I had to manage that. And I did make some great friends through that, and some of those very close friends now. And the other thing that I learnt, I would say, though, is that when you throw yourself into a pool of people, just because you all want to make friends doesn't mean you're going to get along. And so it was sort of in some of the kind of niches and subgroups within that I found my people. So when there were activities that were based around an exhibition, for example, or a theatre, or some of the sorts of things that I really enjoyed doing, I was more likely to meet kind of my type of person than I did if I just went off to a brunch or a lunch or a dinner, which could have any number of diverse people who I may or may not get along with. So it taught me that keep continuing to do the things that I like to do in a group context is a shorter path to meeting the sorts of people who are more likely to be my friends, more likely to be like me, and who I would want to make friends with.
You coach other people through transitions, right? I teach about transitions. I think most average people don't use the word transitions, right? So maybe you and me, we could just stop for a minute and talk about transitions and what they are, and what might be holding people back from flourishing. You know, you're coaching people through this. Could you take us through your view of a transition in life and how you move from stuck to flourishing?
Yeah. So I think that what I've come to understand about transitions are that they are profoundly a process and a time of internal change. So often we think about and perhaps the way I could say it is that change tends to be about like a change of circumstances. It might be about where I live or what I do or who I'm with. But a transition is really the who am I being? What is this like for me? And the questions you've been asking me about today, which is what showed up, what did I need to let go of, what else did I need to learn to do, and how did I need to learn to be? And it's really that transitions are really an internal process, and they tend to have three phases, starting with an ending. So there's something that's happening for us in our circumstances and those changes that are coming to an end. And I think one of the ones that you and I often talk about, Bec, is as a kind of a shortcut into this conversation, is about retirement. So leaving work, or leaving work as we knew it. Yeah. So there's the ending, and there are particular kind of emotions that come up around that phase, whether it's, for some people it's skipping with joy, and for others there's a lot of sadness and grief and uncertainty, etc. And at the other side of a transition is the new beginning. So when things have become clearer to us about what we're going to do next and how we're feeling and who we are. But in between, there's this great big messy middle of change, of transition, that is full of uncertainty and self-doubt and fear. And for many of us, and I would put myself in this group as well, it can be the place where we most get stuck. We can be holding on to the things that we are trying to let go of as we say, the long goodbye and the ending. We might not yet be clear or sure about what the new beginning is. So it is this time of uncertainty, but it can also be an incredible time of experimentation and discovery. And so in the same way that I talked about going back in time to think about what I might do next for work, there are lots of things that we can do in this messy middle that can help us get clearer and clearer and clearer about ourselves as we navigate this time of change and emerge into a new beginning. It's also a time, I would say, when we need to have incredible self-compassion because significant changes in our lives can be very difficult. So we need to make sure that we are really kind to ourselves as we go through this as well.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest transition I have is leaving my own business and doing it quite suddenly and ending up writing a book. But I didn't quite know how I was going to make a leap from CEO to anything next, right? The whole idea, and it was quite. I had a great awareness of the self-compassion I needed to have, and how I had to have an ending. But I had no idea how to do a messy middle or a new beginning. And for me, that led me to curiosity. I read a lot of books. I tried to inquire about what the process was and become quite interested in the phase of life. And probably like you did at 47, had more menopause as well. It was a beautiful journey. Doing an ending with menopause is so much fun, isn't it?
Yeah.
How would you see how many different types of endings? Like all endings end in transitions, don't they?
Oh, definitely.
Job endings, marriage endings, deaths of a partner or a loved one. They all end up in some form of transition, don't they?
They do, and physical changes. Like you talk about menopause, and I think that it's no mistake that people like you and I, Bec, go through really big changes in other dimensions of our lives when we go through such a significant physical change. So I think there's developmentally, there's some things that align in terms of those sorts of changes. And the other concept that I really like and resonates with some of my clients is this notion of lifequake, where there's this clustering of these sorts of changes in the way that you described and in the way that I described earlier as well, that mean that it's profound. It's not a small thing. It is a compounding of a whole series of changes all happening at once that leave us wanting for and a bit shell-shocked and uncertain and unclear. And I think it's really those times that are most significantly challenging, and it's often in people who are going through that kind of life quake that come to me for coaching, where they're in that place of there's got to be something better here for me. How do I do that? And I always say to them that just by coming to see someone like me, a coach or someone else, or even signing up to do courses like yours, Bec, they're on their way. That's a starting somewhere. That's a step they've taken that's helped them just by taking action to start on the road to change.
It's very interesting, isn't it? I wouldn't have known that these things existed when I was going through my own life quake. And I went and saw a psychologist at the time to try and find up, so that I could see where there was light, right? Because I didn't really understand where light was valid, because you kind of lose all perspective if you're in a true life quake, in my opinion. And just knowing, okay, financial certainty, goal certainty, what is your identity certainty, all those things that go missing. and which ones are important and which ones you can leave. You can just park them and have that self-compassion and tackle along the path is very important for people to come through and to have somebody to talk to about.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I think, your example is another really good one, because when you're giving up something so significant, it's not going to be replaced immediately by something as equally as significant. So there is a process of needing to recreate a vision and make steps toward that mean that inevitably life's going to look different for a while. And coming to terms with that, I think, it can be quite challenging.
It blows my mind that we think these things are quite unusual, but anybody who goes through a redundancy in their 50s, and then finds that it's hard to find another role in that type of level of salary and has to repicture their career path through the next 10 years. Anybody who loses a partner, whether it be by divorce or death, right? They're losing a vision of their life and the way it was going to go, right? It's all about resetting goals and resetting what do I do next in our lives, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right.
I see a lot of people who don't know how to reignite their curiosity, who feel like they were on a path, they were pretty adequately happy with the path, but then something disrupts the path, right? The life quake gets in the way, and they don't even know what they're interested in. Where do you point to them to start?
I think there's two really quick and easy ways into this, and one is to look back in time and the other is to look forward in time. And the looking back is the one I described, which was, what course had I considered doing in my late teens, early 20s. But it doesn't need to be that particular question, but it might be going back, looking and reflecting over time to say, what are the things that I might have pursued or things that interested me at various times that I didn't pursue or didn't have time or resources or whatever the things were that got in the way at the time that might now be of interest. So looking for breadcrumbs.
Yeah.
And then once you have
once you have breadcrumbs, right, once you've got a couple of things you want to go and explore a little bit, I then want people to be really conscious of having courage. Right, so you've got to find something that you want to be interested in or you think you might have another interest in reigniting or igniting. But then you've got to have the guts to go, hey, you know what, if I keep pursuing this, there might be something in here for me. How have you learned about coaching people through perseverance or having courage when they haven't used courage in their lives for the last decade or two? As much as they maybe need to develop it. I talk about it as a muscle in what I do.
Yeah, and I have to say that for me in coaching, it's less around, I don't know if courage is the thing, although sometimes there's permissioning, giving myself permission to explore this thing when I'm, the person who's done everything for everyone in the family. That's kind of one perspective. But the other is that it's what I find is that once someone starts to see possibilities and reconnect with some earlier passions or interests, there's a bit of momentum that just comes naturally from that curiosity. I think when the courage comes into it, it's when it's about a bigger action. So if I'm going to take my work in a different direction, or if I'm going to stop working, or if I'm going to bring a really significant different aspect of something into my life, that's probably more where courage shows up. But really, I think once someone is finding those sparks of inspiration, they get so lit up by them that it has a force of momentum that gets people moving.
And what would you say to somebody who feels their best years are behind them?
Oh, that's not at all true, and that I think that when someone's best years are behind them is probably once they're dead. That with every day in our lives, we have incredible opportunity and possibilities abound, and it's really about finding the things that most are going to bring you joy and pleasure, and where you're going to feel at home in yourself and have a really fantastic and flourishing life.
Thank you for listening to Primetime. We'll link everything on this topic into our newsletter at primetimers.net. Now, make sure you tap the follow or subscribe button wherever you get your podcast so that the show downloads onto your player every week. And please share word about the show and leave us a review so that we can meet your friends as well. Stay tuned for our next episode, and in the meantime, make your Primetime count.